number
Yeah,
5.
okay,
Starting at
number
the
5.
bottom.
Number 5 for the month of, well, this is supposed to be for the month of September. We're now in October, but we'll just shift everything. So the month of October. Number 5 was Insidious, directed by James Wan,
Insidious
starring Patrick Wilson.
It horrified me.
I'm going to be honest with you and say that I was not as impressed with this as I wanted to be.
It got me for the jump factor.
There
It got
was-
me for the screaming, like, oh my gosh!
So there was some
Jump
factor.
scares,
There was
Yep.
some jump factor, but for whatever reason, throughout Insidious, I was just like, eh.
That was my reaction too. I've seen it as well. I
Yeah.
saw it years ago. It's just kind of like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
there. It's
Right.
it's doing all
It
its
was,
parts.
But it's currently on Netflix. So
and
if
it was
you-
worth watching, but it only got me because of
Well,
the
I
jump
love
scares.
I love me some Patrick Wilson. I love
Yep.
Patrick Wilson, the Conjuring movies. I love him in The Watchmen. I just love Patrick Wilson.
Yep.
So number 2, Malicious.
or 4 actually.
Yeah,
4.
number 4 is Malicious, directed by Michael. Wow, I have to write these a lot better next time. It's starring Joshua Stewart, who played the Puritan in season 2 of Punisher, and also starring Delroy Lindo. Now, Delroy Lindo is like the working man Samuel L. Jackson. Just like every movie is made automatically better because of Samuel L. Jackson's presence, every movie is made automatically better by Delroy Lindo's presence.
It would have been a 5 if not for him.
Well, and so Malicious was a really great movie because I thought it offered a great spin on the entity trapped in a box. And then when you open the box, what happens? I'm not going to say anything more about that because it's going to ruin too much of the movie.
It was the Dracula 2000 of entities in boxes.
No, it was really good. I thought it was a really thoughtful movie.
Are you saying Dracula 2000 is not good?
No, not at all. It's trash. No, it was a really thoughtful movie. It's a slightly of a bummer, a mild spoiler. It's a slightly of a bummer ending, but this is the controversy, I think, with all stories. There's the ending we want, and the ending that follows naturally from what the story has. And the ending may be a little bit of a bummer, but it follows logically from what the story puts down. The acting was really well done. I thought it was a really, really nice film. Number 3 is Delirium. So this is an interesting movie. It's actually produced by Leonardo DiCaprio, and it's starring Topher Grace and that guy who played a Hydra agent in Captain America Winter Soldier.
I've never liked
That's his
anything
name.
that Topher Grace was in.
I'm going to be honest and say I really like Topher Grace, and I sometimes wonder why he hasn't done better.
Because he's a pretentious a-hole. is
No,
why.
I think that Topher Grace hasn't gotten much traction because every single character he does is just a slightly tweaked riff on Eric from that '70s show.
Pretentious a-hole.
I just don't
That's him.
think. I just don't think
That's an accurate description.
I don't think he has that much range. Like I have liked everything I've seen Topher Grace in, but it's just a slight variation on Eric from that '70s show. Now here's the interesting thing about my rankings. The acting was actually better in Malicious. The production was actually better in Malicious, but I knew where Malicious was going from about 30 minutes into the movie. Delirium, at the very least, had me guessing, where I had 3 options where I'm not sure what's going on here. So Delirium is Topher Grace's character is being released from psychiatric care for the first time since he was a teenager. And he's kind of on 30-day house arrest to prove that he can function normally in society. He's also inherited his father's fortune after his father has committed suicide under kind of sketchy circumstances. So Topher Grace, I thought, does a great job playing another version of Eric from that '70s show. The other actors in the movie, not so much. But at the very least, I'm sitting there going, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this. And there was a really nice twist at the ending that I wasn't expecting. So that's my number 3 for this month. Number 2 is The Witch, directed by Robert Eggers.
The Witch.
The Witch was great. The Witch is one of those movies that I think is totally open to interpretation, and I think any interpretation is valid. You could interpret it as it being that the dangers of religious intolerance and paranoia, but it's not necessarily an indictment against religious faith. Yeah, because the family and the witch are not necessarily just religious. They're they're so religious, they're like not even fit to live with a religious. They're outcasted from their Puritan family. They're outcasted from their Puritan community because they're so Puritan. So it's not
Hyper
necessarily.
Puritan. That should be like a
Yeah.
superhero.
Yep.
So it's not even necessarily an anti-Christian message or an anti-faith message. I think it's really a profound treatise on what happens when you become so obsessed with evil and evil. Now, that's not to say that there is no evil and there is no real witch. Again, I'm not going to say anything more because I don't want to.
I feel like we're going into
I don't-
drunk history
No,
of horror with Kevin Lucia.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it all. I'm not going to spoil
We
it
need
all.
about 2 more beers.
Two
Yeah,
more
right,
beers,
two more
and then
beers.
this is going to get really funny.
But it's a great movie because the atmosphere is wonderful, and I think it's very open to interpretation. My top, these are all on Netflix so far. My top streaming of this month is Sinister,
Starring
Okay.
Ethan Hawke's sweater.
Ethan Hawke. This was free on Vudu, Vudu.com. It's an app that you can use on Roku. So Sinister was absolutely amazing, and I feel a little bad that it's taken me this long to get to it. Sinister had a really rare combination of this creeping atmosphere and these very brief, very shocking visuals. Like there's a couple scenes, I don't want to give away anything. There are a couple scenes in this movie that were so shocking that I was just like, I was really disturbed.
And I would say this one's actually holding up really well. The Witch as well are holding
Yeah.
up really well when you look at the recent rankings of like top 50
Yeah.
horror movies
Yeah.
and stuff. This one's been hanging around for a while.
Yeah.
I will say I really enjoyed this one with the scenes with what Ethan Hawke is investigating, him in his sweater. I feel like his sweater is a character in the movie.
He does wear a sweater
His
quite a bit
author
throughout
sweater.
the movie.
I-
Needs to turn some more lights on.
Right.
That was
Oh,
my
yes.
only quibble.
Yes.
Was like in
Well,
every single scene, I'm like,
why-
Ethan,
turn some
turn a
lights.
freaking light on. It's dark in every
The-
scene. But move on.
I didn't dive into the whole supernatural element. I mean, it's there and it kind of shows up, especially towards the end. I didn't love that. Just in the way it was presented, I didn't hate it, but I didn't feel like it was the strong aspect. But the other scenes leading up to that, with the investigation, the movie stuff like that, was phenomenal.
And I think what was really powerful. So a little bit of backstory without spoiling it. Ethan Hawke and we probably feel quite a bit of kinship with this being writers ourselves. Ethan Hawke is a true crime writer, and he found early success by writing a true crime novel about a terrible tragedy. But since then, he's been on a series of misfires, and he's resorted, and I think every writer has been in this place, where he's resorted to writing textbooks to make a living. And he feels like this case that he's investigating is their next big break. And really, I think if you're a writer and you're an artist and you are in the middle of that conflict, and that conflict is always, there's something about my art that completes me, that fulfills me, and that makes me who I am. And yet I have a family
That also completes you.
that also completes, but not only that, it completes you, and I'm responsible for their safety. That is something that I don't think anyone really truly understands except for an artist. And the fact that we have this whole storyline that Ethan Hawke's character is so desperate to find fulfillment that he's very willing up to a certain point, almost until it's too late. And again, I don't want to give any spoilers, to put his family at risk, because he as an artist, he's like, I have to find fulfillment. If I write another textbook for a paycheck, I'm going to go insane.
Yeah, and I think this is one where
But then he loves his family,
Right.
and he finally realizes, I have put my family in danger.
And I think this is one of those stories where it can quickly get ridiculous in terms of you're rolling your eyes and saying, all right, just move on. It's kind of like obviously there's a threat here. You need to get out of this room. Similar to your comment, like, just turn on some lights already. But
That was a stylistic choice. It
That
was
was
very, very
stylistic.
dark, and I
But
loved the
I
movie.
think,
But
I think that in terms of the pacing, in terms of when he makes his decisions to change what he's trying, I think it succeeds there. It does well. It does seem logical. I didn't roll my eyes at that. I did laugh a little bit when they bring in the supernatural element at the end because and that has to do with the presentation. It wants to jump the shark with the supernatural presentation, but the story with him, with his family, with his desire to fulfill his art, but also protect his family, provide for his family, and the investigation aspect, all that was great.
yeah, absolutely. And this is probably a good example about how, with this show, we want to just offer all. Now, for me, I totally bought the Supernatural. I have heard people say, and I haven't seen it yet because it hasn't popped up free yet. I have heard people say that Sinister 2 kind of jumps the shark. I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know. But those are my top 5 streaming of.